Over the last 48 hours, we've learned a lot about Half-Sword that we didn't know at launch, such as where to get your hands on a crossbow or how the new muscle building works. I've been watching discussions go down in the Half-Sword Discord, and I've found tons of useful tips and tricks that the average player might not know yet, so here's everything you need to know. The first thing we're going to touch on is optimization and what settings you may want to change in order to get a better experience. Now, if your game has been running fine, feel free to check the video chapters below to skip ahead. Everyone's computer is different though, and for me, I found a massive improvement by switching my DirectX version from DX11 to DX12 in the settings. This was able to completely fix that broken slums map for me, and you can now see that the ground textures properly load in compared to my first video. This isn't the case for everyone though, because if you've been experiencing frequent crashes, then the number one tip is to make sure you're actually on DX11 because it's the more stable version. Another thing that you can try to do is disabling blood entirely, which seems to have fixed crashing for a lot of people as well. Now, there's also another known bug for AMD users where the blood is going to pool into a square grid, so if you have noticed that, then don't worry because you're not alone and it will be fixed as soon as possible. Moving on to our first actual tip, which is that in the new progression mode, you can actually pay off your sins at the Seer. If you didn't know, every time you kill someone, they'll appear in the abyss to seek revenge after you die. If they win, then you're forced to restart the current level you're at with a new character, but there are a few ways that we can tilt the odds in our favor. Maybe you can choose to take the pacifist approach and try not to kill anyone. If you can win battles with blunt weapons and not kill them, then you'll never have any souls to fight. This also means if you've been dicing up your enemies for fun after every battle, then you're actually adding to the amount of souls that you need to appease. So to visit the Seer, you'll need to click on the abyss in the tavern at night. Here, you're gonna see payoff if there's any souls unrested. Each soul costs 10 pfennings, and you'll never have to worry about fighting them if you die, so if you have the money, I would do this when possible. The most important time to do this is right before a tourney because you've done all the progress to get there. So I'm currently at the man-at-arms rank, which is the second highest under knight, and I actually made the choice to keep fighting to earn more money before taking a shot at the tourney. This is so that I could pay off all the souls. In case I died, I wouldn't need to completely restart that level. Now, there is also another way to save your items should you end up dying in the abyss. By visiting the trader in the tavern, you'll see the option to insure. This is a one-time cost that'll save that item for you when you die. Now, in our real lives, insurance may seem like a scam at times, but in Half-Sword, it's actually a good value. For example, I built this cuirass that easily cost me over 300 pfenning, however, it costs just 127 to insure. So this means that if I was to die and lose my gear, I won't need to spend another 300 pfenning to get it back. Essentially, you're buying a future copy at a cheaper price. This brings me to another tip for the early game. Instead of selling all of your extra items, sometimes it's best to hold on to some of them. For example, you could sell this chestplate for 16 pfenning, but the exact same one costs 134 in the trader. This means that if I die and I need to rearm my character, I've essentially lost 118 pfenning that I could have had. So depending on where you're at in the game, you're gonna have to decide whether it's best for you to insure your items, hold on to the spares, or actually just get rid of the things that you know you don't need. Now, there has been a bit of confusion when it comes to what items can be equipped with each other, so let me show you exactly how to figure it out super easily. In the character customizer, selecting an item will display the changes on the left. So for example, by hovering over this harness, you can see these two red spots that are golden underneath. This means that this item would occupy these slots. However, the red branches mean that we need to equip another item to open them up. Now, if we go down to the arming doublet, you'll see that this changes those red thorned out slots to be open and clear. So if you equip it, you're gonna see that one of the slots is actually still highlighted red. This means that while our shirt does allow those slots to be taken, an attachment on the shirt is already occupying that red one. So you would want to go to the armor crafter and remove the chains. If you don't see them there, all you need to do is go to the tavern master and rest, and now this will swap the weapon and armor crafter. Quick little fact about the armor, which is that it actually dents now, and while it is just temporary during the match, you'll see the armor begin to wear in the places that it's been hit, which is really cool. It'd be fun if this became like a persistent system where the dents add up and you'd maybe have to repair the gear as it becomes worn and dented. Now, let's talk about all the different ways that you can walk out of a battle richer than before. One of the best ways to do this early on is by stripping and robbing your enemies of the items you need. For example, if you're in an early rank and haven't been able to get the armor yet, but some of your opponents have it, you can take this right off their bodies. You do this by grabbing them with either Q or E and then holding that key down. This will pop the item off, which allows you to equip it by holding that same button, and if it's not the item you wanted, then you can easily just drop it by pressing the same key and trying again. Even if you don't need the item for yourself, you can always just sheath their weapons and bring it with you to the trader. Little fact to keep in mind though is that if you do drop your weapon or armor in game, that's going to be left behind and you will lose it forever, so make sure you have everything you need before ending the round. Another way that you can make some extra gold is by looting items on the map. The earliest example of this is on the Slums map. By walking across the bridge into the small village, you can find these chests that are openable. You may find small armor pieces, weapons, or best of all, these golden goblets. If you reach down and grab one with E, hold that down and you'll be able to equip it to your belt, which then you can bring with you to the trader, and these sell for 37 pfennigs each. Now, let's talk about that crossbow. The only place in the whole game that you can find it is on the forest map, and it's actually not going to spawn every time. If it is there, it'll spawn in this small wooden box beside the wagon, and you're only going to have one shot in it. There is a quiver that you can find with a couple extra bolts, so the crossbow isn't really a valid weapon at the moment. You are able to retrieve the bolts by grabbing them as long as they're stuck within an enemy, otherwise they're gone. One of the other interesting things that we got teased early on, but haven't seen much of in the early access, is this cool dagger that you could thrust down in the trailer. This caused a lot of people to get hyped up thinking that this was a new way to handle weapons, but right now it turns out that only one weapon can be handled that way, and it's the Rondel dagger that can be found on the Cellar map. But now, let's talk about this brand new muscle progression system because it is super important. If you're someone who played the demo a lot and then tried out early access, it most likely felt sluggish and slow compared to what you're used to. This is by design, and the biggest reason behind it is this new muscle system where you start off weak and build stronger over time, which then allows you to properly swing and handle your weapons. Now, there's been a lot of speculation about how this exactly works. Some say that you need to spar and train, some say you gain muscle by swinging weapons and running around in heavy armor, and others said it was strictly tied to ranking up, but I finally found a response from a developer who's confirming it. He said, quote, "The more you play and heavier you wear, you get muscles." Someone replied, "Are you sure it's not just based off when you rank up?" And then he replied, yes. Someone else asked, "Can you train specific muscle groups like the legs to improve footwork?" And he says, "Jump with heavy armor, no joke." And if you didn't know, you can actually jump now by holding spacebar, but you're gonna see that it's not always useful. Maybe if you train your leg muscles and then remove your armor for a brawl, you could perform some cool MMA moves, but with a heavy set of armor, you're only gonna end up a couple inches off the ground at most. I did find another message from someone saying that they were able to max out their muscles as a beggar in 2 hours by brawling with no weapon. So it seems like in order to build muscle, you'll want to focus on increasing your weight and spending as much time fighting as possible. It's not going to be tied to your rank. Also, if you've noticed that when you start a doubles match and you're all alone, this is because you need to hire a helping hand before you start. To do this, you'll go to the train menu at the top of the tavern and click on Hire Muscle. Here, you're going to see a bunch of different guys to choose from, all with their own strengths and weaknesses, and they'll reset every day. An easy way to just quickly check who's best is by looking at their cost, but even then, sometimes I prefer a cheaper guy if he has different armor or weapons that I prefer. For a simple doubles match, you're only going to need to hire one guy, but if you've just clicked hire, then you're not ready to jump into battle yet. Once they're hired, you'll see this new menu appear in the tavern that says Mercenaries, so go in there, click on him, and then assign him. You'll see his name becomes highlighted in yellow, which means that he's assigned to your next fight, and they're also going to stick around for the rest of the day, so you don't need to back out and reassign them every time. You can choose to use mercenaries during any battle that involves more than a 1v1, and it's most important to use them during the tourneys. They will completely save you and make progressing much easier. Now, don't be worried when you load into the tourney and see that you're all alone, because they're only going to appear once the fight becomes a 2v2 or a 3v3. It's also worth keeping in mind that the friendly fire is disabled in this game for both you and your enemies, so don't worry about accidentally chopping off poor Emmerich's head, and don't bother strategizing to try and get your enemies to hit each other. Now, I mentioned that mercenaries stick with you throughout the whole day, so if you really want to profit off using them, then what I like to do is hire them first thing in the morning and bring them along to multiple fights throughout the day. This way, you're not just paying to borrow them for one fight, because typically the winnings from a doubles match can barely cover the daily costs for a fighter, so it's not usually worth hiring them if it is just for one fight, unless it's for the tourney. Now, I'm just going to quickly list off some facts that answer the most common questions that I see in the Discord. Number one is that if you're someone who only cares about free play, the best way that you can unlock everything is to just kind of cheat through the progression mode by lowering player damage and gore while maxing NPC damage. Number two is that in order to progress to a new rank, it's not the battles that say champion you need to do, it's the tourney that'll appear after maxing out the rank progress bar shown in the gesture menu. If you don't see it yet, then you likely need to just wait another day in game. Number three is that under the battle shown, you'll see this thing that says bet in a number. This is the amount of gold that you are putting up, so if you lose the battle, then you lose the amount that you bet. Number 4 is that if you're struggling to stay standing on the slums map, this is due to a gameplay mechanic in the mud that is meant to cause you to slip and fall, so try to stay higher up or on those wooden boards. If you have any questions at all, just leave them down in the comments below and I'm gonna do my best to answer them. Also, I recommend checking out the official Half Sword Discord where there's tons of people willing to help at all hours of the day, so you can find a link to that posted down below. While you're down there checking out the Discord, if you enjoyed this video, then press the subscribe button and like because it really does help out a ton. And I also hope that this video was able to teach you at least one thing you didn't know yet. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.